So today I want to talk about two books that I use in my practice as a teaching artist when I'm talking about drawing faces and portraits. And the first one we're going to talk about is Drawing the Head and Hands, which is kind of a classic book. I think it was originally published in 1956, and it's become a classic drawing book. It's still in print. You can still get copies of this book, and we're going to dive into that, and I'm going to talk about its highlights and why I like it so much. And the second one is a book I came to know when it first was published. This one is also still in print. It's probably not nearly as well known, but it has some really good parts that I absolutely love. Pam Carriker is best known as a mixed media artist, and she really did a deep dive into working with portraits and the bones of drawing in this book. There's a really indispensable section in this book that I think is really great. It also has some really great projects that you certainly could try, but there's a section in here where she really gets into the meat and bones of drawing the face, and it's just a really wonderfully written book on drawing portraits. The other thing that I'm going to do is just a quick little bonus. I'm going to share a free app with you, and it's very rare now that we have any kind of anything free for an app. It's one I've used for a few years, and that's just a little extra that I'm going to throw in, and it applies to both of these books, and it's just a little fun thing that you can use in your drawing practice. So I'm going to get started with Drawing the Heads and Hands. So like I said, this book was originally published in 1956. I've had it for ages, and it was originally purchased by me as a discard library copy. So I've had it forever, and I think mine has a couple little scribblings in it because it was a discard, and so it was a used book when I got it. So the one that I have says copyright 56, 5th printing 1966, and I probably bought this in the late 70s. So I have a few. I want to hit the highlights, and then we'll flip through a little bit. What I love about this is it is a classic drawing book in that it refers back to the classical way that people learn to draw, either from the live model or the Asaro head, and we'll get back to talking about the Asaro head shortly. So the Asaro head is based on the planes of the human face, and he goes back to showing you the planes of the face, how those relate to our face, and he shows the basic and secondary planes of the face. And then he shows different views of the face, how they work in perspective. You'll see a lot of very old haircuts in this book, which are very funny. Different shapes of the face. But then he gets a lot into the proportions. So as artists, we learn that the eyes are halfway down from between the top of the head and the chin, and then the nose is halfway between the eyes and the chin, and the lip shelf is halfway between the nose and the chin. So these are all standard proportions that we learn when we're drawing the face, and he shows you those here. Now we also know that the pupil lines up with the edges. Our pupils line up with the edges of the mouth, for instance. And so he shows you all these proportions. Generally, there's 5 eye widths across the face. And so he's showing you all this stuff. And, you know, the top of the eyebrow and the bottom of the nose is where our ear is. And so he shows you this. Those things are very common in most people. Some people are a little bit smaller, a little bit larger. So these are all standards in the head. He's showing you those types of things. And the different angles. And he has a lot of chatty things that you could certainly read. He also goes into musculature. So if you were to read some of this stuff and pair it up with something like Betty Edwards, where you're looking, seeing, and rendering, you have a more balanced view of how to go about drawing. But before we had, you know, drawing on the right side of the brain, this is how people classically learn to draw. Here he gets into modeling the planes of the face. Once you kind of know what the planes of the face are, he gets into modeling the planes. We have some really sporty 50s hairstyles in here, which are fun. And then we get into the female head, which is pretty much the same, a little bit more refined, a little smaller. He'll show you a little bit of a comparison, different angles. And then he gets into children's proportions, which are completely different than adults. Their proportions are quite different. And babies and young children have different proportions again. And small children and older children have different proportions. So he keeps changing the proportions. And these are like school-age children. They have a little bit of a different proportion again. And it just keeps changing as they age. And then in the back of the book, which is really cool, is he's got a really great section on the hands, block forms of the hands, then male and female hands, palms. Hands can be really tricky for artists. So if you were to study this and then go into the blind contour and contour drawings of Betty Edwards style, you would really get a handle on how to draw hands. So these are really useful exercises. Make many studies of the hands, he recommends. Yes, we have to draw hands a lot because they're really complicated. Okay. Put this aside. And then I want to dive into this mixed media portraits with Pam Carragher. And she, as I said, is a mixed media artist. She does a lot of acrylic and collage and combinations of all those things. And she has really lovely projects in the back if you felt like trying some of those with portraits. And they're really fun. But the part of this book that I really love is that she's gone in here and has really outdid herself with proportion and views of the face and explained where everything goes. And here we're going again with halfway down, halfway between for the bottom of the nose, halfway between that and the chin for the lip shelf. She's showing where the pupils go in relation to the edges of the mouth. She's showing you where the ear lies on the outside, and she's explaining all those things to you. And here we have step by step how to build, render, and model a face from scratch. And she explains in each of these steps how to go about doing that. This is a very, very in-depth view of how to draw a face. And she has them from every angle, from the front, from the side, the three-quarter view. It's a really wonderful book. She really gets into the differences between the male and the female, how to model and render, talks about tilts, how to map out on a photograph, lights and darks. Now, Asaro heads are quite expensive, so I also have my students buy these styrofoam wig models, which are very inexpensive. So she recommends that. I've been doing that for a long time. It's like a cheap model for artists. And here she's going to talk about the face planes, which we earlier discussed. And then she gets into eyes and variations, ear variations, noses, how to model the nose, mouths, how to model the mouth and make it look realistic, and face mapping from photographs. So you can use stock photos on the internet, vintage photos, ancestor photos, anything you might have. And of course she's working towards mixed media because that's what this book is, but you can really use these techniques in any sort of artwork, oil painting, watercolor, acrylic. And then she goes into her projects from here. And she does get into mixing skin tones. I think she does a little bit of color theory here, how to use collage and mixed media. It's really a great little book. This is still in print, and you can get a brand new copy or a used copy if you're looking for some economy. The thing I wanted to share with you that I absolutely love, which is a free app, is called Head Model Studio, and it is an Asaro head, A-S-A-R-O head. So when you're an art student, the Asaro head is like the standard model for the planes of the face that you would draw from. It's how you study the planes of the face, and it's a teaching tool. There's usually a male version and a female version. They'll have them at most art colleges. Some larger nonprofit art centers will have them. Certainly better museum teaching programs will have them. And they're a very useful tool when you're learning to draw the head and face. So with the basic free version of this, you can customize your model. You can change things. You can tilt his head. You can move his head all around. You can modify his facial features. You can widen his mouth or bring it back in. You can adjust his nose. You could lengthen it. You can move the bridge. You can do all kinds of things with his eyes can get wider or narrower. There's all sorts of things you can do with the shape of his face. You can lengthen it, you can make it come in or out, wider or narrower. So you can really change the shape of the face if you'd like. It does all sorts of really fun things. The ears. Let's see what it does here. Oh, you can bring your ears up or down. You can angle them back in. You can make them really stick out. You can make little ears, big ears. Let's see. Eyebrows, you can make them back or forth. And so it has a lot of really fun things that you can do to the shape of the face and where things are going. And of course you can always tilt it. You can adjust the lighting. The sunset lighting's a little warmer, the sunrise lighting's a little cooler. You can also adjust the spotlights where you want the lighting to come from. So that's all stuff you can do, all in the free app. So in addition to a sorrow head, I also very often recommend just an inexpensive styrofoam wig head, which you can buy in male or female. And I'm going to link in the description below to where you can purchase those. They're very, very inexpensive, generally under $10. And then, you know, if you were to purchase this Asaro head, it would be several $100s to buy just even one. So having this as a free 3D app is just phenomenal. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Thanks for joining me today. Please hit like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help my channel grow, and I do appreciate it so much. Please come again soon.